At least 10% of the people who've had COVID in the U.S., about 2 million of our fellow Americans, are considered so-called long haulers, meaning they still have symptoms of the virus long after getting the virus itself. Well, researchers are now moving to start a clinical trial for experimental drugs that could help these people, but so far, none have been approved and there are not any treatments. Our Dr. Narula takes us now inside some of the rehab clinics for long haulers that are popping up all across the country, and she's going to show us how critical their situation really is.
When we first met Kevin Rathel back in April,
we love you.
He had just woken up from a medically induced coma because of COVID complications. Today, he's back home, but hasn't fully recovered.
There's a lot of memory loss, being out of breath, a lot of fatigue, a lot of joint pain, things like that. You wonder if you're going to get everything back, but we don't know yet.
He falls in the estimated 10% of COVID patients who are long haulers, survivors who months after being infected with the virus are still experiencing debilitating and often crippling symptoms.
There are days when you try to get up, your body just won't cooperate. Your limbs won't move. Your brain is too dizzy for you to even sit up, let alone stand up.
25-year-old Michelle Sogi went from a fit and healthy athlete to living with chronic muscle pain and fatigue, shortness of breath, and brain fog.
I actually could no longer live by myself anymore. The symptoms were so debilitating. I couldn't get up. I couldn't shower.
She's now a patient at UC Davis's Post-COVID-19 clinic, one of several new specialty care clinics emerging across the country, specifically dedicated to treating long-hauler patients.
What happens at the post-COVID clinic that you attend?
Yeah, so initially you get seen by whoever is the most appropriate person to see you for your prominent issues. So for me, that was breathing. Because COVID is so unknown, it's affecting people in so many different ways. It is a multi-step, multidisciplinary process.
Dr. Margot Gage, an epidemiologist, professor, and mom of two, has a team of specialists working with her on her various issues.
I have skin rashes. I have vision issues. I have ringing in my ears. I'm on an inhaler and have a sort of asthma, even though I'm not an asthmatic person.
She also describes headaches stronger than migraines and says on bad days is bedridden.
What are the doctors saying to you now about your condition?
That they are readily admitting that I have post-COVID symptoms. We have our own mode of treatment and plan that we carry out. So it's very a one-to-one type of treatment modality, what I'm undergoing.
Dr. Virginia Witt works at an outpatient post-COVID care facility in New Jersey and says the need for these clinics is dire.
We have patients who have obviously lung damage, scarring. They're short of breath. They have no exercise tolerance. Some of them even need lung transplants for the long haul. Some patients are on dialysis. We have people with heart problems.
No matter how good, how better I get, I will never be the same person that I was.
Narciso Rodriguez is one of Dr. Witt's patients, being treated for damage to his lungs, which has impacted his ability to work.
Before I used to work, 14, 16 hours a day, and it didn't bother me. But now I can.
One of the biggest issues seen at these clinics is chronic fatigue and brain fog. Alexandra Hackett says her life radically changed, seemingly overnight, from breathlessness to cognitive issues.
I started to recognize that I've been taking an immense amount of concentration to get through my day. It's an itch you can't scratch, mentally.
Once a week, she sees a neurotherapist at McGee Rehabilitation in Philadelphia.
You went from somebody who was totally healthy to someone who now has a cardiologist, a pulmonologist, is doing neuro rehab. Your whole life has changed.
That's why I want to share my story, because I know that there are people out there, long haulers, who are suffering with symptoms who are far more debilitating.
Keep going, keep going. You don't want to have your future reduced to nothing because of an illness.
A lot of people do survive. A lot of people do. But there are also a host of people who survive but are no longer the same.
Wow. Dr. Narula joins us now. Dr. Narula, it was great to hear those case studies, but I'm interested, what are the big themes you've heard as you interview these so-called long haulers?
Well, one of the big things, Tony, is the frustration of not being believed, is presenting to your doctor with all these complaints and being told it's in your head, go see a psychiatrist. Another centers around the anxiety of just not knowing, are these symptoms going to get better? When are they going to get better? How long is this going to go on? And then the third big theme really centered around suddenly going from somebody who was a caregiver to somebody who had to be cared for, and what burden that may be placing on their family members. But many of them spoke about the support they're getting from these online social media type groups, and so that's been really great for them.
Yeah. And Dr. Narula, I would be remiss if I let you go without pointing out that you are now among the vaccinated Americans, at least one dose. Last week you got it. We have a picture of it there. How are you feeling?
I feel good. I had some arm pain, a little fever and chills that night, but it was really, I was so surprised at how emotional I got. I started really tearing up at it. It just, all of the months of being a doctor and caring for patients myself and being worried that I was going to bring it home to my family, hearing the stories of my friends and colleagues, and then being a journalist and covering this, it was just a very emotional moment, one where I felt a release of fear, hope, and just tremendous gratitude for science.
No, it's emotional for us too. I mean, I was hopeful when the authorizations came through, but then frustrated as we see the slow pace of rollout. Glad you got it. I'm very excited to see more and more Americans get it as well. Dr. Narula, thank you very much.